for anybody listening out there. I took my recorder with me yesterday, by the way, to our premillennial fellowship meeting. I recorded the message, but I can't put it online because missionaries, especially to Israel, do not want their information out there. But it was a blessing to hear from him. And I'm going to tell you a little more about that, Lord willing, on Sunday morning. We're in Daniel chapter 2 today. I'm going to read the first 5 verses or so, and then I'm going to make some comments on those verses. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians, and the astrologers, and the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans to the king spoke the Chaldeans to the king at Syriac. O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If ye will make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. So the king called his magicians and astrologers and sorcerers and Chaldeans to come before him. He wanted all his wise men right there because he had a problem. You know, these men professed to be able to foretell the future by one means or another. You notice he called them all from every form of this occultism to come before him. And the method, if this fellow couldn't do it, they assumed this one could with his conjuring and that sort of thing. So they hoped that between one of them they could come up with an answer. Well, they were called collectively so that they could exercise their enchantments in order to give the king an interpretation that would pacify him. You know, the king challenged these wise men to interpret his dream. I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. And if we go on to verse 4 again, it says, Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell the servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The Chaldeans, in this case, this is a special group. These are a class of wise men, the wise men, priests, if you will, the astrologers, and they spoke to the king in Syriac. Now, this is actually a little easier for us to understand. It's Aramaic. That's the language they spoke to. That was the common language of the Assyrian Empire and used in both the Neo-Babylonian and the Persian Empire. It was the diplomatic and commercial language of the time. It's the language, this is interesting in Daniel, because up to this line, Daniel writes in Hebrew. And now he's talking, basically it's all about the Gentile part of the story. It's Aramaic until it comes back talking about Israel again, and it comes back to Hebrew. So from this verse all the way through chapter 7, verse 28, it was originally written in Aramaic. So Daniel is introducing a new language to us here. Evidently, the request to interpret the dream had been made before the wise men on other occasions, and they weren't surprised. There must have been many times when Nebuchadnezzar had a dream he couldn't figure out, so he calls his wise men, he tells them the dream, and they come up with interpretation. Okay, that's not too hard. You give us all the information, and we'll put our heads together, and we'll come up with something for you. You know, that's basically what it is. But first, we need to take a look at these fellows. Look at these guys. You know, they're a little different. And we can learn a great deal about these men from the first words out of their mouth. O king, live forever. Yeah, so well, that's just respect. No, it's more than that. They are trying to butter up the king. Oh, King, we love you so much. You're so good to us. I hope you'll give us some more of this, that, and the other. That's what they're asking for. So let's get in good with the king. Let's keep on his good side. That's some good planning right there. You want to stay on the good side of Nebuchadnezzar. He's not Henry VIII, but heads could roll. So these men enjoyed their position of power. They had privilege before the king, and they had power over the people, and were probably very wealthy. They were prideful and they were cocky, and they felt they were better than any of those average Babylonians out there. To them, the only person better than they were was the king. And if he wasn't around, they probably didn't think he was much either. That's the way these fellows are. You could, from one word that they speak, you can tell that. And they're confident that they can interpret the dream of the king. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show you the interpretation. Oh, they were confident with their collective wisdom that once again they could put their heads together and come up with something that would placate the king. Oh, yeah. If we can't come up with a real answer, we'll come up with something to fool him. And that's the idea here. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If ye will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if ye show the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. All of a sudden, Nebuchadnezzar throws him a change up. And they're not ready for that. They were looking for something else, and all of a sudden he's got them. He says, the thing is gone from me. Or the command is firm. The dream is certain to me. It's uncertain whether, somebody said, well, we don't know whether the king really knew or not the dream. Had he forgotten it? No, and we'll be able to prove that a little later. He was putting his wise men to the ultimate test, asking them to recall the past in order to give credence to what they're going to say is going to happen in the future. Not only tell me what the dream meant, fellas, you have to tell me what the dream was. Now, I can imagine right now that there's a lot of knee knocking going on with these wise men, because this is something that they had never heard before. The king never asked them to do this before. So whether unable to recall the dream or not willing to tell the wise men, the test is a test. It doesn't matter whether he knew or not. The wise men were required to tell the meaning of the dream, but they had to also tell the king what he dreamt. Had the king truly forgotten the dream, then the wise men could have invented a dream and could have fabricated the interpretation. So obviously, Nebuchadnezzar remembered that dream. He's putting them to the test. It'd be easy to say, well, you dreamed, and just make it up. He knows what he dreamed. Sometimes you have a dream that is so serious you do remember it. Most of the time you don't. But this is a dream that God's giving him. He is going to remember it. So the king, I think, is reasoning here that if these wise men could recall the past, then they could truly predict the future. He's testing them to see if the king can truly trust his wise men. Evidently, their buttering up attitude didn't impress Nebuchadnezzar this time. He's more concerned about that dream. So the king promised rewards. If you can do it, boy, I'm going to give you a lot of stuff. You're going to be happy. You're going to be richer than you are now. You're going to have a better position than you have now. But, and there's always a but, he put them under a death sentence. If you will make not known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, you shall be cut in pieces, and your house shall be made a dunghill. If they make a false prediction, they're finished. They're in trouble now. In verse 7 and following, they, this is the Chaldeans, answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of a certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. But if ye will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me the interpretation thereof. Now remember something about the law of the Babylonians. When the king sets a law, it cannot be changed. Fellas, you don't tell me the truth, I'm going to cut you to pieces. Now they're worried. So the wise men asked, King, help us out. Give us the dream and we'll interpret it. Oh, I know what Nebuchadnezzar says. I know you're playing for time. I know you guys. And you're going to see that the thing's gone from me. I want to know the dream. And he refers to that penalty again. There's only one decree for you. This is serious stuff for them. Remember, once an order had been given by the king, his seal is placed upon it. It cannot be changed. This, of course, helps us when we get over to the study of Esther, because it clears up a lot of things that cannot be changed, laws. These wise men were probably beginning to sweat profusely. I don't know if it was hot, cold, or what, but I guarantee they're sweating now, because they know they're phonies. They know they've been fooling the king. They may have guessed right here and there, but they're in trouble. And the king was not going to tell his dream to them. No way it's going to happen. They were truly the powerful men they claimed to be. Then they would be able to tell Nebuchadnezzar his dream and what that dream meant if they were truly powerful men. You know, if the king didn't tell the dream, they were in trouble. If he did, then they would have time. And he says, you will be able to prepare lying and corrupt words to come before me. He sees through these fellows now. I'm not going to give you any time. You tell me the dream. And so we notice something here. Nebuchadnezzar is an intelligent man. And he was not easily fooled. Nebuchadnezzar may have become a little impatient with these wise men, because presumably these men are older than he is. They were probably inherited from his father. Remember, this is only like the second year of his reign. So he's inherited these fellows. And he may not be really crazy about them to begin with. Another reason for the test may have been that he was suspicious of their claims of wisdom. Something has happened prior to this. We're not told. But something has happened that's put in Nebuchadnezzar's mind that these fellows are not on the up and up with him. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore, there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth. And there's none other that can show it before the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. Okay, what you have here, they are going into defense mode. You notice that? They're defending themselves. You're making an impossible request. No one's ever asked anything like that before. And there's not a man on the earth that can show that the king's the matter. No lord, no king, no ruler, only the gods. And they don't dwell in flesh. Boy, the future, they're saying the future belongs to the gods, not man. You know what they're doing right there? They are putting their neck right in the noose. These are the fellows who are supposed to be doing these things. Okay, now we can't tell the dream that we're in trouble. So the future belongs to the gods, not men. That's an admission that They have deceived the king in the past. Oh, their past interpretations. Wait a minute. I'm sure Nebuchadnezzar, the hair on the back of Nebuchadnezzar's neck starting to stick out a little bit now. He's looking at these fellows and he said, something's not right. I knew they weren't right with me. So that may have been what Nebuchadnezzar was looking for. Their confession that we can't do these things. He had suspected it for some time. Now he has the proof. The men were in reality charlatans. Verse 12 says, for this cause the king was angry, very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Well, after the wise men revealed the fact that they were unable to satisfy the king's demand, the king was angry, very furious. That's not a good situation if you're on the wrong side of the king here in those days. He had absolute authority. They are going to be cut to pieces. Then he issued the order to execute the wise men. The decree went forth. Kill them. Now, the decree was not only for those who were standing before him at that time, did you notice that? But all the wise men who professed to be able to reveal the future. And since Daniel and his 3 friends were classified as wise men, the judgment fell upon them too. And they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. But as I tell you, the name of this book should be God's in Control. We're going to see that. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which had gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time and that he would show the king the interpretation. Everything that went on with Nebuchadnezzar and his dream and his command to his wise men, it was unknown to Daniel. But then it was the king's executioner, Arioch, who came and he told these things to Daniel. And Daniel said, why is he in such a hurry? Perhaps Daniel was not there because he refused to mix with the pagan leaders there. Or maybe he wasn't invited. Maybe those wise men didn't want him around. He's a foreigner. They're just youngsters. We don't want him. But when the word came that he was under death sentence, Daniel tactfully asks Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? It was then that Arioch explained the incident, and he exposed those wise men's deception to the king. Daniel boldly approached the king with a request that the executions be stayed for a while to give him time that he would show the king the interpretations. This really took a lot of boldness because the king had already accused the wise men of what? Wanting more time. He said, I know with certainty that you will gain time. Oh, and Daniel asked for time. Well, something we see here though. Daniel, even at this point in his life, must be highly esteemed by the king because he is permitted into the king's presence and he was able to petition the king directly. It's not recorded, but Daniel had possibly interpreted dreams for Nebuchadnezzar before. So he was sure he could recall the dream and that he could interpret it. Then Daniel went to his house and made it known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning the secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. It's a time of testing for Daniel, but you notice Daniel is calm. There's no fear. He didn't beg, "Oh, king." He just says, give me a little time, and I'll give you the dream and the interpretation. He returns to his house. He tells his 3 friends what's going on, and together they did something. that people miss so on. They prayed. For mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret. They took it to the Lord. How often do we look at Bible stuff? For example, Job. Job is very slow in asking the Lord. Daniel went right to him. Secret, that means it's something unknown. The dream and interpretation of was, in this instance, but it's later revealed, and it contains something important. It's similar to a mystery, something not yet revealed, but it's going to be revealed shortly. The God of heaven is a title that's used 6 times in Daniel, 9 times in Ezra, and 4 times in Nehemiah. Elsewhere in the Old Testament, it occurs in Genesis, Psalm, and Jonah. Mercy is God's response to a person's need. That's what mercy is. It's God's response to a person's need. Something God has done for each and every one of us on many occasions, and we may not even pay any attention to it. We may have taken it for granted, but He showed us so much mercy. You see, what Daniel has done here is what we also need to do. Daniel recognized the fact that in his own ability, in these circumstances, he was helpless. He had to turn to God in confidence, and he's expecting the Lord to meet his needs. He is praying, believing. Then the secret was revealed unto Daniel in the night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. In response to the prayer of the 4, the dream was revealed to Daniel in the night vision. Evidently, it must have been the very same night. God's perfect timing is always great. Notice Daniel's response. He didn't jump out of bed and run to the king and say, I've got it. Daniel blessed the God of heaven. A simple, thank you, Lord. How often do we forget that? We pray, we get the answer, and we don't say thank you, Lord. That's just sometimes we do that. So he's offering a praise to God. Daniel is totally dependent upon God. We also see he has total trust in God. He knows God's in control, and whatever happens, it's perfect. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. He acknowledges that God is a God of wisdom. He knows the end of the beginning. God is God. And he changeth the times and seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what it is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might, and have made known unto me now what we desire from thee. For thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter. Daniel states that God has power for whatever he determines. Whatever God determines, he is going to do. He can do it. Daniel began and concluded his prayer speaking of God's wisdom and his power. Evidence of his power is seen in his control of events. He changeth the times and the seasons, and of the destiny of nations. He removed kings, he setteth up kings. Nebuchadnezzar was on the throne because God determined to use him to fulfill his will. That's the reason Nebuchadnezzar is there. That's the reason he'll sit there for as long as God will allow him. Evidence of God's wisdom is seen in his imparting wisdom unto the wise and his revealing the deep and secret things. The light dwelleth with him. God, in the sense that all things are clear to him, though the people around us were surrounded by darkness. God knows, and God can reveal the future. God, not Daniel's insight, gave him the dream and the interpretation. And Daniel's prayer of praise closed with thanks that it was God. who had given him wisdom and might, and that he might be known unto me. Now what we desired of thee, for thou hast made known unto me the king's matter. And verse 24, therefore Daniel went unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah that will make known unto thee, the king, the interpretation. Receiving from God here, Daniel has got the knowledge, the interpretation of the dream. He went into the captain of the guard, who was the king's executioner, and informed him that he was ready to interpret the king's dream. Everybody on the royal court knew the king was agitated, and he was short-tempered now, because he brought Daniel before the king in haste. Now, did you notice anything there that is very human? Arioch falsely claimed that he had found someone that can interpret the dream. He wants the credit. See that? I found somebody. And when in fact, Daniel went to him. And so, but isn't that human? I want the credit. What do I get, king? I found somebody. I wonder if he'd have brought forth somebody else and given the wrong description of it, would he have felt so strongly? Anyway, he expected to be highly rewarded for this. The king answered and said unto Daniel, whose name is Belshazzar, art thou ever able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king hath demanded, cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers, show unto the king? But there is a God in heaven that reveals secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the vision of thy head upon thy bed are these. The king inquired of Daniel, can you do this? All right? Can you make known to me the dream and the interpretation? See, Daniel is subject to the same test that all those wise men were given. That's what Nebuchadnezzar demanded. They had previously said only the gods could reveal the future. Now Daniel asserted that what the wise men could not do by consorting with their false deities, Daniel was able to do because there is a God in heaven that receiveth the secrets. Now, notice Daniel is unlike the other fellow. Daniel gives credit to God. Daniel doesn't walk in there and say, look at me, what I can do. God did it. He takes no credit for himself. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter. And he that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for the sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, that thou might knowest the heart, the thoughts of thy heart. Daniel asserted right from the beginning the king's dream was prophetic. It relates to the future that should come to pass hereafter. Things of the future, eschatology, study of future things. Nebuchadnezzar's dream covered the panoramic history or future of the Gentile history, from the forthcoming time of the Gentile powers which had begun to Lord's return. Luke 21:24 says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and they shall be led away captive unto all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Well, Jerusalem's going to be trod underfoot until the Lord returns. Then she will have her king. So the dream that's given to Nebuchadnezzar, the first of many Gentile rulers, remember, this begins the time of the Gentiles. When he takes Jerusalem, the time of the Gentiles has arrived. Nebuchadnezzar is the first, and he was going to have, it's by divine appointment that he's there. God was not revealing a spiritual truth to Nebuchadnezzar here, but facts concerning the political dominion or the domination of the Gentiles that would exist and have over Israel and the nation. Everything in the dream would be readily understandable to Nebuchadnezzar. Again, Daniel really humbly affirmed one thing. This secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretations to the king, that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. Thou, O king, sawest and behold a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image head was of fine gold, his breast and arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part iron and part of clay. The dream that Nebuchadnezzar had is relatively simple. Daniel reported that the king had seen an enormously large statue, a great image. Its size, its appearance was awesome. This great image with the brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form there was terrible. It made the king appear insignificant as he stood before this great statue. There'll be another statue coming, but this is a different one here. The statue was dazzling because of the metals that it was made. The head of the image was fashioned of pure gold. The chest and arms were of silver. The belly and thighs were of bronze, brass. The legs were of iron, and the feet clay. A casual glance would reveal the various parts of the statue. You didn't have to take a long, hard look. You could see the different materials, the different metals. Thou sawest till a stone was cut without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became as the shaft of the summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. The image that Nebuchadnezzar saw wasn't permanent. It was struck on the feet by a stone, till the stone was cut without hands, and it smote the image on the feet that were of iron and clay and broke them to pieces. Note, the stone was cut without hands. This statue, these Gentile powers are destroyed, but not by human hand. The stone reduced the entire image, just like shaft on a threshing floor. That's that light, inedible portion of the grain that blew away when they threw it in the air. The stone destroyed the image, became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. The dream's pretty simple. The meaning of this dream is what agitated Nebuchadnezzar. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thy hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. Daniel's interpretation is clear about this image. The course of the Gentile nations, it would in turn rule over the nation of Israel, the chosen people. Nebuchadnezzar, the head of the Babylonian Empire, represented the head of gold. His father had come to power in Babylon by military conquest, but Nebuchadnezzar received his kingdom, power, strength, glory from the God of heaven. Yeah, he inherited it from his father, but Daniel makes it clear, you're sitting here as king because God has put you here. The God of heaven, not one of your Babylonian gods. Daniel's pretty bold. At the time of creation, the right to rule over the earth was given to a man to have dominion over all of it. Here Nebuchadnezzar, by divine appointment, with the help, the fulfilling of God, by the helping hand of God, is fulfilling what God said he wanted. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and a third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. The second portion of that image, that chest and arms of silver, that represents the Medes and the Persians. And we will get into that a little later, because the Babylonians at the time couldn't read the handwriting on the wall. And the Medes and Persians took it without, as we would say today, without firing a shot. And they conquered Babylon in 539 BC. The arms of silver evidently represent the two nations, the Medes and the Persians, that together defeated Babylon. Though the kingdom lasted only 200 years, it lasted longer than the Babylonian Empire of only 87 years. But yet, the Mede and Persian Empire was inferior to the Babylonian Empire, as silver is compared to gold. The belly is bronze, the thighs, that's the third kingdom, that's Greece. Alexander the Great conquered the Medes and the Persians 334 to 330 BC, and he assumed authority over its people and territory. By Alexander's conquest, he extended the Greek Empire as far northwest as India, and that was seemingly over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all things. And as iron that breaketh all things, shall it break in pieces and bruise. Those legs of brass, iron rather, represent the Roman Empire. The fourth kingdom, they conquered the Greek Empire in 63 BC. Though the Roman Empire was divided into two legs. Notice that? It's because of, we see the mixture of iron and clay, but it was one empire. The empire was characterized by its strength. Iron is stronger than bronze or silver or gold. It was stronger than any of the previous empires. It crushed all the empires that had preceded it. Rome, in its cruel conquest, swallowed up lands and peoples, and had parts of the three previous empires, and assimilated all those peoples and lands together, and I'm out of time. So I've already reached my time limit tonight. I don't want to stop, but hold on there, because it really gets a little better in interpretation as we go on. So you can think this week about feet of iron and clay. What can that possibly mean? Well, Lord willing and be not come,